I'm going to be making one single dressing that's going to help me make 3 different dishes. And I'm going to show you how to do that coming up next. Welcome to Ogre's Kitchen. I'm Chef Ogre. Let's check our prep list and see what we have cooking today. Now, first up on the chopping block is our potato salad. So these are all the ingredients that we'll need for that. Now we're going to add a few extra things to the actual dressing to make this potato salad a little bit unique. And we'll get to that in just a moment, but we'll get these ingredients prepped up first. Next up, we have pasta salad that we're going to use the same exact dressing for. And once again, we're just going to switch up some of the ingredients to get some different flavor profiles. Not much that we have to do with the dressing itself, but adding these extra flavor components of the cheese, olives, the onions, and the pepper mixed with the pasta, it's going to be a really fantastic pasta salad. Now, last up on the list of 3 items that we're going to use the same dressing for is our coleslaw, which originally this recipe was a coleslaw dressing recipe. Then evolved into a whole lot of different other things with some product testing, and I found out it can have a fantastic amount of uses with just one simple base recipe that you simply alter a little bit for each individual dish. So coming up next, we'll be prepping up these ingredients. Now to start with this recipe, I'm going to start with the actual dressing so that way that can sit a little bit, the flavors can marry a little, and then we can get that in the refrigerator. So what we're doing here is we're going to start with a base level dressing that then we can alter slightly with different ingredients and make 3 separate dishes. And to start out, we're going to use some mayonnaise. What's really convenient about this particular container of mayonnaise is that it's the exact amount that we're actually going to use. So it's 48 ounce fluid ounces of mayonnaise, which if you know your conversions, you're going to know that's 6 cups. 6 times 8 is 48. And that gives us the very base of this recipe. So obviously this is going to be a mayonnaise based recipe. You could go through the work and actually make the mayonnaise yourself if you'd like. But why do that when you have fantastic Duke's mayonnaise on hand? And what's also perfect about this, the fact that we're going to be using this entire container, once we're done making the dressing, we're going to make our 3 dressings. All the leftover dressing that we might have, go right back in this container and we can just label it and use it for later. So we'll go ahead and empty this out if it'll cooperate. And it's always good to have a trusty rubber spatula, rubber scraper on hand. Get all the last little bit of that mayonnaise out of there. Make sure you always scrape your containers, that way you're getting maximum usage. That's a pro tip from the kitchens. We leave nothing behind. You want to make sure you get full utilization out of all your product. So anything that's a sauce or anything else that you might leave a residue inside the container with, always have a rubber spatula on hand so that way you get your maximum usage out of all your products. And I'll just set that container off on the side. Honestly, you don't really have to worry about rinsing it out too much. You can if you want, but we're just going to be putting dressing right back into there. So I think it's good as is. I'm just going to wash up real quick. Now that we have the mayonnaise in there, we're going to add our other ingredients, which is going to include 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, which we'll actually use a whisk to mix this all in. And again, as you're making any type of dressing or anything, make sure you're leaving a large enough vessel so that way you can mix everything, so that way you're not spilling over the edges or anything. Also to this, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of salt and pepper. And I like to use a salt and pepper mix. I think it's a great seasonal type recipe where you do a 3-to-1 ratio of your salt to pepper. And then we're also going to add to this a 1/2 cup of sugar. And then finally to this, we're going to add some grated onion and grated garlic. You can use onion powder and garlic powder if you'd like, but I just think the fresh flavors of onion and garlic in this really works out fantastically. And by grating it, you're really mixing it in there very finely, so that way it disperses throughout the entire recipe really nicely. And you get a little bit of that flavor in every single bite, as opposed to if you were to small dice it or even just mince it or chop it. If you don't go fine enough, you're gonna get little bits, little hits of that garlic. This same thing with the onion. Grating it into the recipe actually just disperses it a little bit nicer, I think. So we're going to go ahead and give this a little bit of a mix up first, so that way it's not so chunky on me. And again, just use caution so that way we're not spilling over the edge. Start slow. Honestly, this is a situation where you could actually use an immersion blender even. In restaurants, this is definitely something we'd use an immersion blender for, because if we're making a large batch of this type of dressing, maybe we're making 4 or 5 gallons at a time. You know, this is a dressing, like I said, it's a base level. Then you could add other ingredients to this and use it for so many different uses. We'll make sure we have all those ingredients off of our spatula here. There we have it. And then we will set our utensils aside so we can go ahead and grate our onion and garlic. So I'm only going to do about half of this onion, but I'm keeping the other half intact so it has some place for me to put my hand whenever I'm grating. So I don't have to get too close to my knuckles. I'm just going to grate directly over the bowl. As you get down, if you see a few pieces that are about to come off, don't risk your fingers trying to hold on to them. Go ahead and just peel those off and keep on going. So honestly, this is going to be about 1/4 of an onion total that we're doing. So great starting using an entire half. That way it gives me something to hold on to. And then next we're going to grate our cloves of garlic. And for this, I leave the root end on because that's the side I'll grip onto as I'm grating the garlic into the mix. Once we get down to a reasonable size, I go ahead and just switch that out. No sense taking your knuckles with it. And no fears, the rest of this garlic, as we get down to the end, you could just go ahead and chop up and use that for something else. You don't want any of this garlic to go to waste, because you hate to see good garlic go to waste. Wipe up our sides just a little bit. We'll give this one last little mix. Now that we have everything in there, just one last little mix. And then we can go ahead and give this a little bit of a taste, just to see where we are on the seasoning. And there's a fantastic base to our dressing now. So go ahead and put this in the cooler. It will thicken up a little bit more. The mayonnaise I used was at room temperature. Makes it a little easier to work with, but then it remains relatively thin when it's sitting around. So put this in the cooler. It'll firm up a little bit. And then we're going to alter it in a couple different ways to make our 3 different recipes, which I'll get going on that prep now. For the rest of our prep, we start off with salting some boiling water to cook off our pasta, which is a Cavatappi corkscrew style pasta. Next, we slowly render off some bacon and cook it until crispy. For the potato salad, we medium dice our potatoes and put them in salted water, where we'll cook them until tender. As a tip, always start your potatoes in cold water so that way they cook evenly. Next, we slice out our scallions, which will go into the salad and also be used as garnish on top. Then we small dice some celery. And finally, for the potato salad, we'll chop up some of that crispy bacon we cooked earlier. Next up, we are preparing the ingredients for the pasta salad, which includes celery again. Next, we have red onions and red pepper, all of which will be small diced. And lastly, we'll slice out some Kalamata olives. For the last item that we're going to prep is our coleslaw ingredients, which we start out by peeling our carrot. You can use a mandolin to shred your carrot, but in this particular case I'm cutting by hand and then thin slices on a bias which then get cut into a fine julienne. Next, I thinly slice some red onions and slice out the cabbage as well. Now that our dressing's actually had some time to cool down, and we kept it in the fridge for a bit, measured out about 12 ounces, and we're going to do our coleslaw first. We're going to make a little bit of adjustment. So to this, I have about 2 pounds of shredded cabbage. I got about 1/4 cup of roughly shredded carrot, and then I have about 1/4 of a red onion that I shaved nice and thin. So these all add fantastic flavor profile. The other thing I'm going to add is a little bit of extra vinegar. I like a little extra vinegar in my coleslaw, so this will bloom out a good bit as it's sitting. And the thing to remember with the dressing, you don't want to over dress a coleslaw. There's a lot of moisture in cabbage, and if you have seasoning in there, which this dressing does have salt and pepper in it already, but you can adjust that more if you'd like, but it will draw out some of that moisture from the coleslaw. So you'll have to remix this as it sits. I'm also going to add a little bit of celery seed. So this is about 2 teaspoons of celery seed. And celery seed is very aromatic. It's very pungent. You just have to be a little careful with that as well. You don't want to overdo it on the celery seed, but you could add whatever you'd like to this. Now I also have a little extra salt, pepper here, and I also have some fresh herbs that I chopped up and mixed. You can add herbs to this dressing, but if you use fresh herbs, the longer this dressing sits, the flavor of those fresh herbs will get a little bit muddled. So perhaps something like dry herbs would be a little better, where they'll actually bloom into the dressing a little bit, adding flavors. But I like to add the fresh herbs separately to the dish as I'm making it. So I have about 12 ounces of dressing here, which I'm just going to add. Again, using my rubber spatula to get as much of that dressing into my coleslaw. So you can see I'm wearing gloves because mixing this, you can do it with a spoon, you can do it with a spatula, but mixing it with your hands is just so much easier. So you can kind of just massage the dressing on in there, rotating the bowl as you go, making sure that all of the ingredients are getting mixed together. Don't forget to try to get all the way to the bottom of the bowl. That's what's really important, so that way everything's getting coated in that dressing. Again, depending on your like of coleslaw, if you like a really heavily dressed coleslaw, you can add more dressing. You can lighten it up a little bit if you don't like quite as much dressing. And then once this is done being mixed, we can go ahead, we'll set this back in the fridge, and it'll be all set and ready to go once it's had some time to cool back down. And you could taste this right now. If you were going to serve it right now, that'd be just fine. Something like coleslaw or any of these salads that I'm showing you how to make, they taste so much better the next day. So if you have the opportunity to make them a day ahead of time, that's the best way to do it. Same thing with this dressing sitting here. It really does taste a lot better as it sits. Those flavors really do come out. So I'll give this a little bit of a try. Try not to talk with my mouth full, but really those flavors are amazing. The garlic and onion that were grated into the dressing really pronounce themselves. You have a little more of a punch from the little shaved red onion, but it's not overdoing it with the onion flavor. The rest of the dressing melds really well. The little hints of celery seed. And you can add a little more salt and pepper to this, but I recommend checking the seasoning right before you serve it and adjust that salt and pepper right before you serve it. That way you ensure that the flavor is going to be exactly the way you want. Because like I said, as this sits, flavor profiles will change. You may need to add a little more salt and pepper as you go. But this right now is absolutely delicious. And so what we'll also do is add a little bit of this nice fresh herbs into here. This just adds a little more color and a little more flavor. You could use whatever herbs you like. This has a little bit of thyme and a lot of parsley mixed in with it. And that really is just to liven up the color. You could also use, purple or red cabbage in this, and that'll help liven up the color as well. You could add more red onion if you'd like. You don't want to really overdo it, but whatever your preference is, you can add to this coleslaw here, and it would be delicious. So now this is ready to head off to the fridge, and we'll get ready to make our next salad. Now we're ready to move on to our pasta salad. So once again, I have all my ingredients set. I prepped all my ingredients into this one bowl here, and I'll go over that with you right now. I have 2 stalks of celery that are diced. I have 1 diced red pepper. I have 1/4 of a red onion that's diced. I have some shaved Parmesan cheese, and then I have about 1/4 cup of sliced Kalamata olives. I'm doing about 1 cup of dressing for this one, and we can adjust as we go. But I'm going to go ahead and add my ingredients in first. Once again, I have my salt, pepper, and my herbs present to add into this as needed. And what I did with the pasta is I cooked the pasta in salted water. When it came out, I tossed in a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Not only does that help add flavor, it keeps it from sticking. And for the pasta itself, I cooked it just about too al dente, knowing it was going to carry over, cook a little bit. And honestly, I've learned that the pasta being slightly more than what you'd want for a pasta dish is perfect for an actual pasta salad. So we'll go ahead and add our dressing now. And I'm wearing gloves once again for this one. You can mix with our hands. You can use your rubber spatula, whatever's most comfortable for you. And for the pasta, this is about 2 quarts of cooked pasta. So it's a little less than what you'd get out of a pound. And we're using the corkscrew Cavatappi style pasta for this. So once again, just kind of gently massaging the ingredients together as we go. Rotating the bowl as things incorporate, making sure we get down all the way to the bottom. Once again, this is one of those things where you can add what other ingredients you would like. If you'd like to switch out the olives, if you'd like to switch out the peppers, you can even add some spiciness by adding some pepperoncinis to this. That'd be a delicious addition as well. And just the same as what we were talking about with the coleslaw, the flavors of this will really develop over time. So adjusting the seasoning before serving is really the way to go, but all these flavors will kind of marry in there nicely. It won't escape on us. Let's get him incorporated as well. But you can see the ridges of this pasta really help hold that dressing on there nicely. And as this refrigerates, it's going to just hold on to that a little nicer as well. Now to add a little bit of fresh herbs to the mix here. We'll grab our spatula for this and just kind of mix this up. This once again helps add some fantastic color to the dish, brings a little extra flavor to it as well. Once again, you could use whatever herbs you like. Now if you were to add some fresh tomatoes to this in the middle of summertime, that would be amazing. You could add a little basil. You could switch up the type of cheese that you use as well. If you wanted to do like a diced provolone, you could add salami to this. There's so many different options to make this unique to your own. But really, what we're doing is we're using that base level dressing to make all these dishes and just altering flavors. So now that our pasta salad's done and ready, to the fridge it will go, and we'll go on to the next salad. Now lastly, we arrive to our potato salad. Again, using that same dressing that we're going to alter very slightly to make it work for this potato salad. So now what I've done is taken about 2 pounds of potatoes and I boiled those in some salted water. Started with cold, brought it up to a boil and got them to the right doneness. I cooked off some bacon earlier and I reserved some of the fat, and when the potatoes came out, I tossed the potatoes in a little bit of that bacon fat. So that's kind of what you're seeing is some of that cooled bacon fat now on the potato salad. That's going to kind of mix in with our dressing and help thicken it up a little bit. But also what we're going to add is I really enjoy a little bit of mustard with my potato salad. You can certainly omit this if you don't like it, but this is a little country Dijon, which is similar to a whole grain style mustard. So we're going to go ahead and add about 2 tablespoons of that. Again, using our trusty spatula. Now in this bowl here, I have about 5 strips of bacon. That is thick cut bacon that I've chopped up, nice and crispy. I have celery, 2 stalks, and then I have about 3 scallions that I chopped up. So we'll add all of this into our mix as well. Now, if you wanted to make this a little bit more like a loaded baked potato salad, you could certainly add cheddar cheese into this. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of our herbs now. And then I'm going to add about 4 ounces of dressing to start. May need to add a little bit more. And then we'll check our seasoning as well. Potatoes do tend to absorb an awful lot of seasoning, so you can adjust that as needed. Once again, got my gloves on, and we'll go ahead and lightly toss this. You really want to make sure all that mustard gets mixed on in. That bacon fat's getting mixed in as well with all of the potatoes. So that way you have all of these layers coming together. I think we might be good on the dressing. Really don't want to overdo it. And this dressing can be a little loose sometimes, especially as it sits out, but this looks like a very good consistency that I'm trying to go for here. Looks like exactly where I'd like it to be. And then we'll go ahead and stop there and give it a try to test the seasoning. I'll get a good little cross section there. And I love how that bacon flavor really mellows in there. You get little hits of it from the crunch of the bacon, the mustard. You get little twinge of acidity from that. I really enjoy that. The onions, the scallions mix in, a little bit of garlic from that dressing. Really is a wonderful mix of flavors that you're getting from this. And this is our third and final salad. I think the seasoning's perfect, so we can move on and go ahead and plate these up. And there you have it. So we've taken one dressing and we've used it in 3 different ways just by altering a few of the ingredients to make 3 different salads. And you can plate these salads up however you'd like. If you'd like to set up a little salad bar, or if you're doing a big feast for game day or a picnic, no matter what you're doing, just a little alteration, one dressing to save you a ton of time, and then alter a few of the ingredients in the different salads that you're making, and this really can save you a ton of time. And really, this dressing will last at least up to a week, maybe even more. There's not many ingredients in here that are going to go bad. With vinegar, onion, garlic, sugar, and the mayonnaise, it really won't go bad. And like I said, you could store any of your extra in these convenient containers, or you could put it right back in the mayonnaise container with a label on it, just so you know that it's dressing. But if you want to even get more creative with this, you can certainly use this even as a sandwich spread to add a little extra zing to your sandwiches. Go ahead and experiment with it, and that's really the best thing about this. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I hope you give it a try, and let me know down in the comments what you think. What I really like to convey with this particular recipe, this dressing, is that it's really important to be able to cross-utilize ingredients. And in the industry, this is an absolute must. A lot of restaurants, a lot of banquet kitchens, they will do this not only to save time, but also to save money in so many different ways. Being able to save time and money by cross-utilizing ingredients is so important in the industry, and it's something that they do in the industry on a very regular basis. The ability to make a base level recipe and then to be able to utilize it across a wide spectrum of other different dishes and recipes is a huge must. Not only do you save time by just generating that one recipe and then just adding different ingredients to alter it in little ways that can make an entire new dish. It's so important in the industry to be able to save time that way. And not only that, sometimes you just don't have a deep pantry to work with. And this is especially true even in the home. You may not have a ton of ingredients on hand, but if you just get a few ingredients here and there, you can take one basic recipe and alter it slightly. We covered this in the basic marinade recipe as well, where you take a base level recipe, add ingredients to it to make it unique to its own, and it can completely change and alter a dish to something completely new. Well, I really hope you get to try this recipe. Let me know some of the variations in the comments below that you come up with yourself, and let me know what you think as a whole of this recipe. Thank you for watching. That's it from Ogre's Kitchen. Time to sweep, mop, and go home. If you enjoyed today's video, please like and feel free to share. Subscribe for more content and hit that notification bell for when new videos are uploaded. For all those who are subscribed, thank you for your support. Hope to see you next time, and until then, keep those cauldrons bubbling and feast well.